The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Ciarra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Ciarra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. All right, as we promised, we are going to do an episode on all the stuff about training versus certification, experience, all of these things when it comes to doulas. So we mentioned this in our episode about some of the coverage options that you have for birth doula and postpartum doula care. So if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back and listen to it. But let's start off by talking about the difference between a trained doula and someone who is a certified doula, Sam.
Yeah. So I think this is maybe one of the most confusing things if you are not a doula, when you're trying to look at like who's, what's a certified birth doula versus just a birth doula, what's training versus certification, because in a lot of lines of work, the training doesn't matter unless you have the certification. And that is not the case with doula work. So as a doula, what the process kind of looks like for us is that we, choose some sort of a training program. There are so many different ones out there. And, there's pros and cons to all of those different programs. And you go through whatever training process they have. So that might look like a weekend intensive training where you spend, 3 days holed up in a room with your trainers or online with your trainers and going through all of the things that we need to know about being a birth doula. And then, maybe there's like additional things to be doing afterwards. Or it might be like an online program where you're going through and it's like an e-course where you can kind of go through and learn all of those things at your own pace. And then there is certification, which is the process of applying for certification. So a trained doula should have done everything required for certification, but then chosen not to be certified for some reason or another. I'll say for myself, I chose not to certify when I became a birth doula because the program that I went through, I just didn't feel as though their certification and their values lined up with how I wanted to practice. And I didn't want to be held to their standards that I didn't necessarily fully agree with at all times. And it felt like there were a lot of rules that weren't necessary for how I wanted to practice. And so I chose not to certify. So I am a fully trained doula, but I am not technically a certified.
Very experienced doula.
Very experienced trained doula. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not a certified doula. The majority of our people don't know, or if they do know, they don't care about that because I do what I do and I do it well. But it was a personal choice for me not to certify. And then there are, people who feel really strongly that they want to have that certification, maybe because like what we were talking about in the last episode, they wanted to be able to work with Carrot, or they wanted to be able to, take TRICARE clients or Medicaid clients or whatever that might look like. And that was something that was really important to them. Because I work with Ciarra, I'm able to still do those things. But we can just look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, maybe I'm the primary doula on some of those instead of having it be a partnered doula or whatever. But that is a hindrance. So she's not able to take care of clients. But there are doulas on our team that are fully trained doulas that are great, that are not certified. And so when I get these requests in, I'm not able to give them those jobs. They're not even interviewing with those people, which is kind of a bummer because they get really excited when we get it in. And if it doesn't have it on the contact me form online, that's one of the requirements for them, then maybe we psyched them out because they got excited about a potential client. Now, it's funny saying these things because we are birth doula trainers who have a certification process with our Birth Baby Academy. But there are going to be people who take ours that choose not to certify. And what that is like, Sam explained a little bit of it, but I just want to break it down, and it may be a different way for you to look at it too, is that they did all of the training. We gave them the packet. And she said, these are people that do the certification process, but then they don't apply for it. Maybe or maybe not. So maybe some people don't even, they're not going to answer the questions if they're not turning them in. They're probably going to look at it and see what all it entails. But maybe they're not going to, write it all out for us and send it in. They're fully capable because we taught them all the stuff in their training, but they just don't feel like it. And that's okay. I would say when you started, Sam, 5-ish years ago, that was way more reasonable and doable than it is now, because with these new programs that are requiring certified doulas, it's now getting a little sticky, right? It's like, man, you might be really missing out on a lot of jobs if a lot of them are reimbursement programs. So that's a bummer. But for the client, if you are just cash paying, you don't have one of these things, we just want you to know that having a trained doula is just as good as having a certified doula if they went through a good training program. And the certification for some of these companies, not with ours, we were very purposeful to not make it so that you have to pay every year to keep your certification up, or even every couple of years. There's no payment that you have to make in order to turn in your certification packet, which in some of these companies there are. It's another $100 or however much dollars once you turn it in for them to even grade it. 500. Yeah. So, and then they're requiring you to pay every year to keep your certification that you earned. And it's they're holding it hostage if you don't pay your dues. So we don't like that. It doesn't align with us. That's one of the many reasons we created our own program. But that is for you as the consumer, just know that them simply having that little checkbox that they're a certified doula and they have the certificate doesn't necessarily mean that they are a better doula than somebody that doesn't have that. And I think people will be surprised to hear us say that because they wouldn't expect that from us.
Because I think a lot of, and this is the idea behind those training programs that have the yearly dues or whatever, is they want to see that the doulas that are a part of their program that are certified through them are doing continuing education. They want to have these check boxes of, okay, this person is still, continuing to do these things to further their knowledge, to stay current, to do whatever. And we feel really strongly that that is extremely important. I think that at least in my situation, the limitations put on what that had to look like and how much money I had to spend in order to do that, that was a wall for me that I couldn't get over. I wouldn't be making enough to make it worthwhile if I were to be doing that. Which is a huge part of why we have Birth Baby Academy in the way that we do it. Continuing education as a doula is super important. Staying up to date, reading the articles, reading the books, listening to podcasts, knowing, what options are available in different places and where you're working. That is what is important for doulas to know, not necessarily, going to all of the conferences and doing all of the things.
And our belief is that if you are a doula with us, with Birth Baby Academy or whatever, one of these other companies that doesn't require that, you're not going to be as good of a doula if you're not going out and doing CEUs and continuing to learn. So that's going to reflect in your business and it's going to come out in the wash. So we don't micromanage it. We just know that it is important. We teach that it's important, and then it's in their hands to do what they want. I think that another thing that people really, really hone in on is how experienced a doula is. We've had some people come around and be like, I only want a doula that has 5 years of experience. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have any idea how many births that would take? First of all, most people in the birth work community, the burnout rate is about 5 years. Like most people don't make it past 5 years. High five, air five to you over there that we've both made it. You're crushing it. We've both made it past 5 years. But it's not very common. So a lot of the doulas that we know are not. I used to be the baby doula, and now I'm one of the more experienced doulas, which is kind of funny at only almost 6 years of experience. So people that say, I want 5 years of experience, they could say that and then not ask about how many births somebody has been to. And if you talk to somebody and they only take one birth a month and they take the summers off and the winters off, like there's all these things, right? Or they took off 2 years to be with their kids when they had their baby or whatever. You really, the number of births makes a difference more than the number of years. But even the number of births is not as important as the connection that you have with the doula. Let's talk, Sam, talk a little bit about like, why is the connection piece so important?
So as doulas, we're not medical professionals, right? Like we are professional support people. We are there to help you feel safe, help you feel taken care of, help you feel like you have some semblance of control on what's happening around you. And importantly, that you are, receiving informed consent and feel like you are a part of the decision-making process. That's what we do. And we do not have to have, 50, 75, 100 births under our belt to be able to do those things. What we do need to have is a connection with the people that we're working with. And there is a difference. We've had people hire us who are maybe they're just kind of in it for what they can get out of it. They want, just a person there. They know the stats. They know, that this can help prevent unnecessary C-sections, help prevent birth trauma. And those are the things that are important to them. And we absolutely do those things. But it's more of like a business transaction. That's fine. But we are not going to be you are not going to be getting the best of us if we don't have some sort of a relationship. The clients that we serve best are the clients who we love. We are excited to go to their births. We are excited to hear about them. And we have that connection piece with them, which is why for Ciarra and I, we talk to our clients all the time. We have a text thread where we're checking up on them a lot. Our clients know that they can text us or call us whenever they have a question. We do meetups because we want to form a relationship so that when I come into your birthing space, when you are in labor, you feel as though your friend who knows a whole lot about birth is there and you are excited to see me and excited to have me there, because that's going to boost your oxytocin levels. That's going to boost your endorphin levels, all those good things. That's what we can bring into the room, as well as that informational and hands-on comfort measures and all of those different things.
Yeah. When someone says, really and truly, a trained birth doula, even with no experience, if they were well trained, they are fully capable of attending your birth. I have had people choose doulas on our team that have less experience than me. Before you and I were working together, I'm not by myself. It's a solo doula versus a solo doula. And they choose a doula on my team over me because they have more of a connection to that person. Yeah. And that is more important. And I had the most experience by far, but it doesn't matter. So as the agency owner who's like doing all of this background, like filtering through, trying to help match people with doulas, I find that a lot of times people don't want to give a chance to somebody who's a brand new doula because they're like, well, I don't think that they're going to be able to give me what I need, which here's one of the things that I think is really important. Not just with our company, obviously, everyone, anywhere can listen to this. So this isn't just for us, but I'm going to use us as an example. With our company, when we have a doula on our team, they have access to us for mentorship all the time. If there's a question at 2 a.m. and they're like in a bind at a hospital and somebody's telling them, their client, something, and they're like, wait, I know that's not true, but like, I don't know if I can speak up right now. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about it. Maybe I'm wrong. And they need to reach out to me. They can. Does it happen? Yeah. No, they don't get into those binds because they are really well trained. Like they already know, but they could. So having a mentor behind them that has more experience than they do, I think that is really important. But I don't think that them having all of the experience in the world is as important as you feeling like you can be vulnerable and completely transparent and show yourself in front of them when you're naked and your vagina is showing.
Yeah. So I think that's a good question as a consumer for you to be thinking through too of, okay, like I'm talking to this doula and I really like her, but she really doesn't have a whole lot of experience. Maybe that's a question that you ask her. Hey, what, maybe it's what did your training look like? That way you can have maybe a little bit of an idea of what the process for them was. And then it's, do you have, mentors that you are working with or that you can talk to? I didn't have like a official mentor with like someone that I was, paying or like in a program or something like that when I was a new doula, but I had multiple doulas that I could talk to when I was, trying to figure all of these things out. One of my first clients had a really complicated pregnancy with all of these things came up. And I didn't know, much about any of it, but I was able to support her and support her well because I could call on my mentors for help. They could direct me to the places where I can go find more information to then send to my client. And so my client got the benefit of not just my care and support, but also the community, the doula village of knowledge, which was amazing.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too, is the experience doesn't have to be from that doula because they're not doing any of the medical things. Just because you have gestational diabetes doesn't mean that you need a doula that has gestational diabetes experience. Same with a VBAC. You need to have a doula that knows how to research. They should have learned some of that in their training program. They need to know how to get the information to you, whether that's through crowdsourcing and finding out from other doulas. There could be, I'm 5.5 years in, and there are still times when I reach out to other doulas, maybe that have less experience than me, because we know a doula that within her first 3 births had the 3 most wild experiences, such a wide range of experience, already had experienced something that we hadn't experienced in like 3 years at that point. So it's what happens at those births. They're a puzzle. They're all unique. So it could be that they have a ton of experience from their 10 births that they never would have had even in 5 years, potentially. It's also not that important that your doula has had experience with your specific provider. So that doesn't really matter because 1, you may not even get your provider when you're in labor. It's an on-call model for most of them. And 2, it just doesn't matter even if it is your provider because it's still a birth. They're still doing the same thing. Physical, emotional, and informational support. They're not checking your cervix. They're not going to have to perform the C-section if you go back for one. They just need to know how to love on you and how to get the information that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mic drop.
Yeah, exactly. So, to sum it all up, connection, I would say, is more important than experience. Training is more important than certification. All of those things have their place. There are times where we need experience. There are times where we need certification, but knowing, what you need and learning what you need as you go through the process and then finding the right fit for you. And it may not be who you think it is.
It does just make me giggle as doulas with hundreds of births under our belt between us and doing a training academy that has a certification process, that this is an episode that we put out. But that just shows that we are just really honest people.
Exactly.
All right. I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.